the Irish Times today. I'm going to go to their main home news section. This is page 4, because this isn't in the sports section today, it's actually in the news section. Department of Sport to meet IRFU for talks on future of Aviva Stadium. So this is Emma Malone and Jack Horgan-Jones have a line in this saying that apparently the IRFU are not interested in taking ownership or taking on the stake. That's an interesting thing that is being established at the moment. The Aviva Stadium director, Martin Murphy, believes that any attempt to sell the association's interest will be complicated. There would be charges over it and the bank would have a say. It's not something you can really just put a for sale sign on, and it would be very hard to put a value on. And the Department of Sport, Tourism and Transport said that the stadium's business model only really works if the stadium is owned by the governing bodies. So there's loads of interesting detail in these. They've got 3 separate stories here, and I just wanted to talk about this one in particular. Ross defends revelation of FAI appeal for 18 million. So obviously last night the FAI issued a statement after Shane Ross breached the confidentiality of their meeting on Monday. Ross said, "I felt it was appropriate in the circumstances which we find ourselves to demonstrate seriousness by responding with the specific figure of 18 million. In the interest of transparency, it was important to tell the truth, not evade. I'm working night and day with all the stakeholders in the interest of Irish football. This evening I met SIP2, the PFAI and other representatives of the grassroots in pursuit of a common goal. We'll be meeting UEFA in January with a shared objective." Now, what the FAI are saying is that the purpose of the meeting with the government on Monday was to expedite the completion of the refinancing deal, thus allowing the nominated independent directors to complete their own due diligence and take up the roles. So everybody seems to be putting a lot of store in the fact that these independent directors are going to ride to the rescue of the FAI. And in particular, this is what Shane Ross is saying, that there's no way that that organisation could ever get any state funding or be fit for purpose for taking state funding until we get the independent directors. The independent directors won't come on board until a debt refinancing deal has happened or they've got all of the facts established. And what the FAI are now saying is that literally the minister whose job it is to try and fix this is getting in the way of it by blabbing about meetings that they're having to brief him to keep up to date with the situation. And they're saying that what was said in the Oireachtas today will not help the recruitment process for these independent directors. One source said Mr. Ross was acting irresponsibly. His comments on a potential examinership or liquidation, and specifically the naming of the precise figures sought in financial support, are seen by FAI sources as particularly problematic. Nobody has any sympathy with the FAI and the old board and the problems that they got themselves into. There's none out there at the moment. But I have some sympathy with the current board who are in there, who are actually trying to get some stuff done. And Ross comes out and blabs away to the committee yesterday about stuff that had happened, and also doesn't actually seem to know any of the facts about what he's saying and the impact that this might have on the future of football in Ireland. When they were asked and they were just like, oh yeah, the league will be gone as well. I mean, look, it might all go tits up and it might take the league with it. And sure, if that happens, then maybe, I don't know, would there be any international football again? That seemed to be the, like, they were working it out. They were working it out as they were saying it.
But like, it's not even the working it out as they're saying it. To me, it kind of strikes me as the sort of, well, it'll be beyond the bold step for you if you do anything worse. And this will be your punishment without having any substance for that punishment actually being a thing that really exists, because clearly this guy and Brendan Griffin just didn't know yesterday about the potential implications for the FAI going down in terms of the League of Ireland. Like, it seems that Shane Ross thinks that this is just an open goal politically, and he is going to go and he's going to get down on all fours and nod the ball into the back of the net and do a few trick shots before actually blasting the ball to the back of the net. So he's dawdling, he's enjoying the limelight around this, and he's trying to twist the knife as much as possible in an organisation that badly needs its help, and specifically this week, his confidentiality in terms of the actual money that they need. Like, this is not a moment for political point scoring. This is a moment for actual help that is required for the FAI. Like, who are these 4 independent directors that are going to come in? If he had any idea who they are, I'm sure they're probably turning on their heels at the moment after the 18 million figure was released yesterday. Who released that figure? Shane Ross. Like, it's this thing.
Well, look, I'm sure that they would have known that you would need to know those figures if you're coming in, right? And that's totally fair. If you are going to be on the board, that you would have access to the same information that everybody else has and the full details of the liabilities. But, like, you know, there's a way of doing this and there's a way of managing this which makes it look like you at least know what you're supposed to be doing. And in this instance, when they're talking about the league going tits up, there was no regard for that. There was no sense that this might be damaging to the league, that this might be in any way. So if you're a sponsor thinking of getting involved with the League of Ireland club. At the moment, are you likely to say, yeah, I'm definitely going to get involved, or am I going to wait and see? And that might be the difference between the club being able to afford to do something that it needs to do, or to buy a player, or to sign somebody, or to pay wages. Like, it's absolutely idiotic, the level of complacency that is on display from the minister, whose job it is to try and fix this. There's another bit here where at least the PFAI and other people in this are actually doing some work, asking some questions and trying to find some stuff out. This is, again, in Emmett Malone and Jack Horgan-Jones' piece in the Irish Times this morning. The PFAI, however, requested that the international union to which it's affiliated, FIFPro, seek clarification from UEFA, which said that while the situation is hypothetical and unprecedented, as no national association has ever failed, it didn't feel the consequences necessarily needed to be so stark, i.e. there's a suggestion that we'd be no international football for 3 years at any level, no grassroots funding from UEFA or FIFA. This is if the whole organisation goes tits up. But apparently, under UEFA statutes, any national association that is dissolved does automatically have its membership terminated. The suggestion on Tuesday evening was that the expectation would be a new body would be established to oversee the administration of the game, and that this could then apply for membership of the federation. Like, you would have to say that's a fairly obvious thing, right? Don't go into liquidation, go into examinership, set up a new organisation, come out of as much of your debts as you possibly can, hopefully agreeing to pay off and doing a deal for them, rebrand the organisation, spin off the league. Like, the league wasn't always part of the FAI, and so let it have a breakaway, let it have its own structure, let it have its own function. Like, there's loads of solutions to this. If people are interested in talking about solutions as opposed to, well, maybe there'll be no international football team anymore. Just the senior international team? No, all teams. Yeah, like, Brendan Griffin didn't seem to have a grip on this either.
No, he said that the March fixtures may not go ahead if this thing goes tits up. Like, there are more international teams than the Republic of Ireland men's international team. And I think his comments yesterday kind of sum up the sort of casual nature of how Irish football is viewed. Problem here, though, is that it's fine for you to have a casual view of how football is run in this country, except if you're, a junior minister for sport, and clearly just doesn't have an iota of a clue of how things are actually run and what the implications might be. Like, you have to say that Jonathan O'Brien is the one person who's come out of 2019 in football politics actually with his reputation enhanced, and once again yesterday kind of bringing some semblance of sense to proceedings, even though his head was in his hands at times, just looking at what was developing around him. And like, he just delivered that brilliant line saying, "We are not the problem child. The FAI were the absentee frauders who didn't give an absolute bollocks about the League of Ireland." And not everything can be reduced down to a soundbite, but that was certainly the best thing that was said, or the thing that had most impact from yesterday's dealings.
Chris Shields on Twitter retweeted this last night. We've got a picture of it there. In fairness, the FAI are only asking for like 18 printers. Dundalk's Chris Shields. Like, there is a point to this, right? Yes. There is a point to this. It's like this organisation, the Houses of the Oireachtas, like, not a brilliantly run organisation. Now, the other side of that is even when that shambolic organisation over there is looking down its nose at you, things have got pretty bad. So, but Jesus, yeah. Look, Shane Ross and Brendan Griffin do not come out of this with their reputations enhanced at all. And I hope that this isn't just an opportunity to beat football, because like all sports organisations have their own issues, as we're seeing with Cork GAA at the moment too.
Yeah, for sure. The Irish Independent, likewise, on the front and the back pages this morning, Dan MacDonald, State considers buying FAI stake in the Aviva Stadium. So the government taking over the FAI stake in the Aviva has emerged as the most likely short-term solution to the troubled association's cash crisis. So officials from the Department of Sport will today meet the IRFU to discuss what the FAI's grave financial position means for the status of the venue jointly owned by the two sporting bodies. So the FAI owes €29 million on the Aviva as part of overall liabilities, which exceed €60 million. And then on the back page, Dan is going with Ross Roseback on bleak League of Ireland claim. Ex-Ireland coaches join All Blacks, because you've got Plumtree there, as well as Greg Feek, who are going to join Ian Foster with New Zealand.
Yeah, so that's the exact coaching ticket that one of the papers, I don't want to get it wrong, so one of the New Zealand papers had reported that coaching ticket plus Joe Schmidt was going to be taken over. So
it'd be Foster, Plumtree, Schmidt under Ian Foster.
Feek,
sorry.
Foster's the boss.
Yeah, sorry,
And
that's
the
what I
others-
meant.
Yeah, that was what had been mooted, and Joe Schmidt was in with us that day, and he said, no, that's not going to happen.
Right, so it'll be interesting to see if there's
I think
still a way in over the...
I think they did say that there's another coach will be appointed, so maybe he didn't get Joe Schmidt and he does want to have one more coach, or maybe he's keeping it open.
The other story on the back page is Arteta to be Gunners head coach by the weekend, and you've got Manchester rivals semi-showdown there with them celebrating in last night's win over Colchester. Just inside then, just more on the Aviva Stadium. Rory O'Connor's done an analysis piece. IRFU's Aviva, house is in order. They are unlikely to risk it all to bail out the FAI. So the RFU's annual council meeting takes place today. So last July it was revealed that a €28 million surplus and revenues of €87.5 million at the end of a year of mixed results off the pitch, but consistent performance off it, were announced. So from the outside, the timing of having the €28 million surplus couldn't be better, because the FAI's outstanding debts in the Aviva Stadium stand to €29 million. So there's a nice coincidence there, but they're not going to, you'd imagine, take them up on any offer that might be coming their way, because why would the IRFU want to get into that themselves?
Because they would own the stadium outright then.
It's true, but...
You can do an awful lot when you have full control of something. Now, look, they're the majority shareholder anyway, so it would seem like it's unnecessary. Ultimately, whoever buys the minority shareholding isn't going to be able to do that much with the stadium, because you're the minority partner. They'll just stop everything that they don't like. Having said that, if you own the whole thing outright and you're getting it at what would appear to be quite a knockdown price, because you're just maybe taking over just the debt, who knows, then I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see the RFU at the end owning the stadium outright.
Right. It's not something that I'd realistically thought of. Like, it is kind of the most obvious thing in terms of a potential buyer, but I really just hadn't seen any suggestion that they were actually going to do this. Like, you think about it, and if the RFU were smart, they could do all the football-related activities that the FAI have already done with the stadium, but just under their entire control, basically. So
you mean like the summer friendlies and stuff?
Or you could still have your Euro 2020 games at the Aviva Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
As an IRFU stadium, and that would only fill the coffers up a little bit more, you'd imagine.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, stadiums, when they're run as well as the Aviva is run, are profit machines. Right, so the Examiner this morning, Bobby on the beat, Bobby Firmino fires Liverpool to Club World Cup final, makeshift Liverpool team. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Michael Moynihan, the pressing financial questions Cork GAA must answer, and there was a bit of grandstanding from the usual quarters in GAA land about, Jesus, aren't we great lads now in the FAI, look at what's going on. And then Cork GAA, the audit subcommittee came out and were like, hang on a second here, we don't agree with the figures that were released last week at the annual convention. So Michael Moynihan's been all over this story in the Examiner. The executive of the Cork County Board met yesterday evening, and the story in these pages earlier in the week surely figured in their discussions. A quick recap. The Irish Examiner revealed on December the 8th the board's deficit was 558 grand. When that went and hit the papers, what happened at that point was the board appointed audit and risk subcommittee sent a report saying, it was the other way around, on the 4th of December, saying that you needed to tell everybody that the actual deficit is 2.4 million, so not the 560 grand as was reported, essentially 4.5 times more. So Michael Moynihan's just very nakedly writing down the questions that Cork GAA has to answer. Why did the executive ignore the advice of its own audit and risk committee? Why was the report not issued to all members of the executive on such a sensitive topic? Because the second letter from the audit and risk subcommittee refers to the first report and says, we now understand not all of you received it. The deficit of 558 grand was described in these pages by the CEO, Secretary Kevin O'Donovan, as a wake-up call. Crisis is a dangerous word, he said, but we can't have another year like this. Yes, our reserves are secure, but it's not sustainable to continue with losses indefinitely. This is a wake-up call for Cork GAA. What is the situation, asks Michael Moynihan, now in relation to those reserves? Will they have to be used up to make the 2.4 million? And there's several other questions there as well, but that is not a great situation.
No, that is not good news whatsoever, especially when the quotes are so, I don't know, sobering when it comes to the smaller amount of money. And if that is actually, as you say, 4.5 times what we actually thought they were, or the money that is owed, that That's not great. That is making things a lot worse. That's a big story, and that's one that you'd imagine will develop as the new year gets underway as well. Back page of the Herald is Liverpool on top of the world. Reds to face Brazil's Flamengo in club finals as Firmino fires to beat Monterrey 2-1 yesterday in Qatar. City furious over Arteta-Arsenal deal. So Arsenal obviously hoping to install Mikel Arteta before the weekend. City not prepared to stand in the way of Arteta, but they have been enraged by Arsenal's conduct as they were yet to receive an approach ahead of last night's meeting with Oxford United in the League Cup. That's how you do it. You just show up to his house, have a covert conversation, but don't make any communication with his employer, even if they've seen the photographs.
Why? So that's the issue, is it?
Yes. That's something that's pissed them off a good bit, that they dare speak to their man behind their back.
City have been bemused, it says in Telegraph, by Arsenal's conduct on Sunday when none of the club's executives discussed Arteta's future.
And that's it as well.
As the two sides met at the Emirates Stadium.
Sat right beside each other.
Have you got any news? Anything strange? What are you doing for Christmas? Oh, when do you finish up? That kind of stuff.
Canapé. Back page of the Sun is taking the mick. The same story. City rage at Arteta chase. Carlo's a toffee on Monday. Carlo Ancelotti has agreed to become the Everton manager.
I mean, bear in mind, when Kenny Cunningham here last week, he was like, no way. That, like, it's an outrageous get from Everton, right?
Well, as I was saying yesterday...
You think he's finished?
There's
It's very Everton-like.
It's a possibility that they've just made...
But you're going to be cheering against him now, just so you'll be proved right. That's like, it's a terrible situation you find yourself in. Wishing Carlo Ancelotti bad just so you can be proved right.
It's interesting. It's like you look at what Everton have done in recent transfer windows, and you look at what, say, Leicester City has done in recent transfer windows, and the stark contrast between them. And what sums Everton up is that they go for the most obvious good thing that they can get. Not the most obvious great thing that they can get, the most obvious good thing they can get. We're talking Alex Iwobi, we're talking Theo Walcott, we're talking, say, Richarlison, and they don't turn them into great players because we already know what they are. They're good players and they will stay good. I've got a sense that they've gone for a manager who has gone from great to good, and that manager will stay good at Everton, and they might finish 7th.
I mean, would Everton take 7th? They'd be in big games.
They'd finish ahead of Arsenal probably if they finish 7th. So.
They'd have to have some big wins. They would be respectable against the good teams. Is that all they want?
Maybe. Like, I don't think that their spending in recent times has ever suggested that they have the ambition to crack the top 4, for example. But like, that is easier said than done. It's not necessarily a criticism that a team who haven't been in the top 4 can't crack the top 4 because it's hard to get in there. A team who can't get into the top 6, really. Back page of The Guardian is waiting game. Arteta holds final talks with Arsenal after a City stand aside, and eyes still on the prize. Firmino wheels away in celebration after scoring the injury time goal that sealed Liverpool's place in the final of the Club World Cup in Qatar.
Michael Clifford has picked his top 10 Gaelic footballers of the decade in the Mail. Have you seen it?
I have.
You have? Actually, you know them. Right.
Well, everybody at home hasn't seen them.
Say that again, Tommy. Right. Did you say that? Go on. What did you notice?
Well, there was no Kerry players in it, obviously. But I didn't notice that it was mentioned to me in the office today.
No Kerry football.
As if it was
top 10 of the last decade.
As if it was some sort of bait or something.
And who's missing out?
I don't know. You tell me.
Gooch. Does he make it? Because
Clifford.
The decade doesn't work. Clifford too late.
Clifford too late. Whereas, in fairness, Conor Callaghan doesn't make it. Paul Mannion doesn't make it. I see Keith Higgins and Lee Keegan both make the list. So 2 Mayo men. And the rest are dubs, except for Michael Murphy and Conor McManus.
Yeah.
So 6 dubs. Like it's
Kieran Kilkenny, number 10. Number 9, Paul Flynn. Number 8, Keith Higgins. Number 7, Bernard Brogan. Number 6, Lee Keegan. Number 5, Conor McManus. Number 4, Jack McCaffrey. Number 3, Brian Fenton. Number 2, Michael Murphy. And number 1, Stephen Cluxton.
It's a strong list. It's hard to make too many arguments against it. I'm not sure that I have Keith Higgins in the top 10 footballers of the entire decade.
Who are you putting in? What Kerry man are you shoehorning in?
I'm not sure. Like, to be fair, it's actually hard to make an argument that a Kerry man individually had a better decade than Keith Higgins because of the longevity of the man, and from start to finish, he was the best cornerback in Ireland. So the more I actually think about it out loud here, the more I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, Keith Higgins probably deserves to be there. He is the only man, the only kind of...
David Moran get a look in?
Fullback, possibly. Like, he'd certainly be one of the top 3 contenders. Like, I would always have Gooch in and around these lists for this decade. I think he gets underappreciated for what he did in the last 10 years. But
when did he retire from Intercounty?
After the 2016 season. I'll accept that 2015 he wasn't great in 15 and 16, but that was after his cruciate in 2014 when he was missing for the All-Ireland win. So really you're judging him on 10, 11, 12, 13, which, like, I'm struggling here to make an argument for them. In fairness, it's a good list. It's fairly watertight. Like, I would always have Fenton and McCaffrey ahead of Stephen Cluxton on these lists. I just think they're, I find them more awesome players. And the same goes for Michael Murphy, so I would have Cluxton in around number 4 instead of number 1.
So who's your number 1?
McCaffrey.
Right.
McCaffrey, then Fenton, then Murphy, and then Cluxton number 4.
McCaffrey's a year out, and then the cruciate as well.
And then, it's mad to think that he's managed to already install himself as one of the best halfbacks we've ever seen.
Paul Flynn, the first player since Jack O'Shea and Pádraig O'Shea to win 4 consecutive All-Stars in 2014. So whatever about your recency bias, like, that's a level of excellence that few people get to.
I don't think nobody's arguing against Brian Fenton being an all-time great, to be honest.
No, or Paul Flynn.
Paul Flynn, sorry.
Yeah, Paul Flynn.
Fenton, sorry, right.
State support, government could buy FAI Stadium stake as Phil Quinn's lead on the back of the Daily Mail as well. And blessed relief, sub Firmino strikes late to calm Klopp and put Reds in final. And Rugby Chiefs won't take on FAI's Aviva debt. That's the story at the minute. The RFU are poised to shoot down any possibility of taking a full stake in the Aviva Stadium in response to the FAI's dire financial situation. I mean, that's what I would say, isn't it? That's what you would say? No, we're not interested. How much is it? How much is it? No, too much. How much is it? Oh, a bit better. Still too much. Wouldn't you? You wouldn't say, yeah, we're going to bail them out straight off, would you?
Well, absolutely not.
No.
And if they're going... See, this is the thing. If they've gone cap in hand to the government and you know exactly how much they've asked the government for, then that probably strengthens your negotiating position if you're the IRFU. So thank you very much, Shane Ross, for giving us a dig out on the negotiating table. It is Shane Ross on the back of the Irish Daily Star. Football for sale, reads the headline. FAI get all clear to sell Aviva stake. Cook is angered by leak. Meanwhile, naturally, FAI chief Paul Cook accused Sports Minister Shane Ross of breaching confidentiality at yesterday's Oireachtas Sports Committee hearing in Leinster House. United earned derby date with City and Boss's firm favourite. That's Firmino scoring the winner against Monterrey yesterday.
Front cover of the Mirror this morning is 62 million own goal with the FAI's crest broken over a picture of their offices in Sports Campus.
I should have showed actually the front page of the Star as well. Come on, you boys in red is there, striking front page. Should have actually gone through all the front pages, to be honest.
The Ireland soccer team is facing being booted out of Euro 2020 if the basket case FAI goes under. Which, I mean, it isn't, is the thing, right? But that's what everybody's allowed to say, because that's what Shane Ross said yesterday. He's the minister and he's supposed to know better than this. But really, there are a million different ways that wouldn't happen if anybody who was competent was actually leading this now and saying, we're getting our hands around this and we're going to rescue football and here's what we're going to do, instead of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why aren't you fixing this? It's like, step up, take charge, take responsibility, do the job you're paid for. The Irish Daily Mirror this morning, Payne Ross, tab of the morning to you. FAI slams Sports Minister as they accuse him of wrecking efforts to rescue association. This is Paul O'Hare's piece. FAI chiefs waged war on Shane Ross last night, accusing the Sports Minister of hampering efforts to address their crippling debt. And as I said, I think I have a bit of sympathy for them when it comes to this, because that does seem to be the case. That what is he actively doing? He's meeting people, and he's going to meet UEFA.
He's telling a lot of people off.
Yeah,
publicly.
And he's going to have his picture in the papers, and he's going to hum and huff and puff in front of the Oireachtas committee. But what's he actually doing?
All we need now is just like a Christmas Eve photo of Shane Ross outside government buildings, saying that he's working hard on the FAI on Christmas Eve.
The most likely picture of Shane Ross on Christmas Eve is some giant comedy check with him handing it to the FAI with a red Santa hat. That's like, I've fixed the problem here somehow. That's which won't be even actively be true.
And back page of the Times is Firmino to the rescue. Last minute winner takes Liverpool into Club World Cup final, and Arsenal set to name Arteta as manager.
So the Racing Post have named their 20 most influential figures of the decade. Number 1 is Sir Anthony McCoy, it says. So Tony McCoy is number 1. Sheikh Mohammed, number 2. John Magner, number 3. Frankie Dettori, number 4. Khalid Abdullah, number 5. The Queen, number 6.
She was fairly influential, in fairness. Let's like, she's more influential than you or I, anyway. She maybe not deserves to be on this list, but
It's a bit lickspittly, isn't it? It's a bit lickspittly, naming the Queen number 6.
she does have like a race named after her.
The Queen is often bracketed alongside Frankie Dettori as racing's most significant ambassador, but at some point, racing will be denied her. Because she's going to die. I mean, is that what it is? The fact people wonder what comes next speaks volumes for her power and patronage. I didn't realise that the Telegraph had bought the Racing Post. Well, apparently they have.
Well, like, the thing is, she has had a very
Long life.
long life. She's survived the whole.
Not watch The Crown, Tommy, no. Apparently it makes you fall in love with the royal family.
She survived the WhatsApp group led by Gibbo and Ricey a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure that was something that swung the decision to include her in the Racing Post list.
Something happened, did it?
Yeah, you obviously remember when she was trending on the Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
Gibbo and Ricey.
Get your clean cacks on for you're going to be away for 3 days.
Yeah. So, if she's managed to...
That's why they're all like, oh, better stick her on any of these lists just in case we have it written, cut and paste, slash it up to number 1.
Yeah. I wonder, does that guy still have his khaki pants packed in his bag and is just waiting outside, not falling asleep?
With the hat. What are those hats called?